For joining in for this COVID grant session. I know your businesses are going through tough times, so here we are to just discuss some of the grants available for your businesses. So I'm just going to quickly go through some housekeeping rules. We won't be discussing one-on-one eligibility for anyone here in this presentation, and any questions you can ask through the chat box at the end of the session. Session will be for about 20 minutes, and then you can have the Q&A through the chat. Any one-on-one, please ring my office and you can book a time to discuss one-on-one eligibility. We're gonna have more information available on this by the government on Monday. So hold on to that. We'll be sending you more information on Monday or Tuesday when the applications are actually open, and we can discuss further on each individual case-by-case basis. So I'm just gonna jump into different grants that are available to the businesses. So the first one that we have here is the lump sum grant, which is for the lockdown period, which is the small business COVID support. So we'll go through what the grant is, how much the grant is, and what the eligibility criteria are, and what do we be needing to check your eligibilities. So firstly, this grant is for businesses who are affected by lockdown from between 30% downfall to 70% downfall in their turnover. Now, this comparison is actually a comparison between your lockdown period for July versus your same time in 2019. So to assess your eligibility, we'll be looking at your bank statement for these 4 weeks period and comparing it with the 2019 bank statements for the same period. And if we assess that your turnover has dropped between 30 to 70%, you might be eligible for the grant. Now, what the grant is divided into 3 categories. So the first category is for the businesses who have affected by 30% during this lockdown period. They will be eligible for up to $7,500, a one-off payment, if your business is assessed, eligible, and applied within the time guidelines. The second category for this grant is 50%. If your business is impacted by 50% during this lockdown period, you will be eligible for $10,000. For application for this grant are going to be open from Monday. So if you have any questions, hold on to your questions up until Monday or Tuesday, because applications are not open yet. The third category of this grant is 70%. So businesses which have drastically impacted, the ones especially gone under a complete lockdown, they will be eligible for $15,000 one-off payment for this lockdown period. So that's first main grant for businesses impacted within these 3 categories. As I mentioned, the assessment is your bank statements plus your sales report for the lockdown period versus same period in 2019. So this will be our basic assessment criteria. If you fall in this category and we find your business to be eligible for the grants, we'll be putting your application through next week when the guidelines open. So that's your first category where the business will be eligible for the grants. The second category is one more thing. In this grant, your business has to have a minimum turnover of $75,000 per annum. So your business for financial year 2020 or 2021 would have at least achieved a $75,000 turnover, and the maximum turnover range is $50 million. So that's the eligibility criteria for this grant. The second grant that we have is the Job Saver grant. Now, this is available for the businesses who have employed people in their business under 20 employees, have more than $75,000 plus turnover, and does not pay any payroll tax. So that means your total wages for the whole year are at least less than $1.2 million. This grant is only applicable from the 4th week of the lockdown. So for the first 3 weeks of the lockdown, you won't be eligible for this grant because this is not applicable during that period. One of the most other important condition for this grant is because this is related to the rebate against the actual wages, which is your business will be eligible for up to 40% of weekly wages that your business pays from 4th week of the lockdown. Now, the 40% is applicable though, but you will be eligible for minimum $1,500 to a maximum of $10,000 for any particular week, and you need to provide evidence of employment, and you should have all those employees continued from the past. So all those part-time, casual or full-time employees must have been employed and paid for the fortnight or week ending 13th of July. If you have terminated any employees during that period, you may not be eligible. If you have not paid any casual, part-time, permanent employees during the lockdown period for the first 2 or 3 weeks, you may not be eligible. So the calculation criteria is again the same. Your business has to have at least 30% drop in turnover to be eligible for this. We'll be looking at your bank statement for this financial year during the lockdown period, comparing it with the last 2019 financial year or for the same period, assessing your eligibility of 30%. We'll be looking at your wages, employment contracts, and payments made to the employees from the bank, and actual pay slips issued. On that basis, we'll be assessing individual businesses' eligibility and we'll be applying for the grants thereon. Okay, then we have a micro business grant. The micro business grant is only available for small businesses who have a turnover of between $30,000 to $75,000. If the business is impacted by 30% during the lockdown period, the micro businesses will be eligible for up to $1,500 per fortnight during the lockdown period. The lockdown may extend, so some of the grants will move along with the lockdown, especially the wages grant, because it's weekly application, weekly assessment, and we have to continuously compare your business for the actual eligibility of 30% drop. So these are the 3 major grants. There are, however, other grants such as rental rebates for commercial and residential tenants, land tax rebates, or payroll tax threshold rebates. It may not be applicable to most of our clients. We only have few clients who fall in that category of paying more than $1.2 million in wages. So if you are one of those clients, I would highly recommend book a call with me for Tuesday and I will walk you through the process. If you have any questions on these grants, please feel free to raise a question in the chat box. We'll try to answer your questions right away.
I'd like to correct, this 50% is 10,500.
Any question, people? Put your questions in the chat box and I'll try to answer your questions right away. You'll see a little chat box on your screen. You can type in your questions. Sole trader.
Business which has
Can you read me the question, Ashika?
a business which has one employee and does its payroll, would it be counted as a sole trader or a business?
Okay, so good question. Business who only has one employee, and a lot of businesses which are small businesses who are operated by directors or just shareholders and they take wages, they will still be treated as a business as long as your turnover is at least $75,000 for the previous financial year, but your comparison period will be still the same 2021 lockdown period versus 2019 period of the same.
Next question from Nipun. Anything for businesses being in operation only for last 12 months?
Okay, yeah, it has been a very valid question, and there was a question regarding this when the last year's grant for cash flow boost and job keepers happened. Government, however, for this time has not released a guideline for those businesses who have recently started in the last 6 to 12 months time, how would be doing their turnover comparison. We're waiting for more instructions from the government. There will be more information released when the legislative guidelines are published next week. So until then, if you have any other questions, please feel free to email us your queries and we'll answer as soon as we have some guidelines from the government.
Last question from Hardik. So for the first grant, sales compare with 2019, is that correct?
Exactly. So the sales period comparison for most of the grants eligible are the comparison period of this lockdown period. So if the lockdown happened on 28th of June, we'll be comparing your sales from 28th of June 2021 for next 2, 3, 4 weeks versus the same period 28th of June 2019 for those 2, 3 or 4 weeks.
Another question from Rajkumar. With the Job Saver grant, we have to provide proof of payroll till 30th of July, right?
13th of July. The proof of payroll has to be 13th of July. Government may ask for your STP compliance on payroll completion and employment information on regular employment payments, evidence of payments, evidence of payroll, and STP requirements. So these could be the applicability. So I highly recommend please have this information ready when we actually send out our guidelines on Monday.
Another question from Lokesh.
Yeah.
A business which started in May 2020, would that still be eligible? How are they going to do their comparison with 2019?
Okay, so I've just answered this question before for Nipun. We are waiting for more guidelines on alternative comparison period. So for the businesses who are not operating in 2019, government may release a separate guidelines for comparing those businesses turnover with the averaging of last 6, 12 or 18 months. But we cannot answer that question at this stage because we don't have the guidelines. Okay, I guess I've answered all the questions. Now the process, guys, the process is Monday, once the applications are open, we will assess how the application needs to be submitted. We'll be sending out our guidelines and new engagement letters. So any client who wishes to engage us for this service, please have all the information ready that will be requested, sign the engagements and send us the information. We will start the application process as soon as you complete all those documents. If you have any questions in this regard, I would highly recommend please email us your queries. And if you want to speak to me, please call my office, book a time for Tuesday, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. Yeah, I think we have another question. Yes.
From Hardik, I think we've already answered it, but he says, so for the rental assistance grant, can you please give us a brief?
Okay, Hardik, for rental assistance grant, I'll speak to you one-on-one because there is different guidelines for that. I don't want to go through that for now, but we'll discuss that. Give me a call and I'll discuss that with you.
Question from, he says, sure. Question from Varun Sharma. To be eligible in any of these grants, require the business sale to be dropped by minimum 30%,
yes.
Not like previous year as cash flow.
No, it's not a cash flow. The eligibility criteria are more stringent this time. The business turnover has to drop by 30%. If it's 29% or 28%, business may not be falling under the eligible criteria. And we'll be doing all those compliance checks, assessments to make sure that you qualify. If you don't qualify, we'll let you know. So in terms of the assessment, the application process include multiple steps. So we will be Once you sign the engagement, we'll do a complimentary assessment. If your business is not eligible, we'll let you know. If your business is eligible, then our engagement terms will follow. I think we've answered most of the questions. So if you have any other queries, please feel free to email me. So I'm just going to end this presentation now, and I'll look forward to have more conversation with you on Tuesday. Thank you.